organization. The Unitarians was a really strong organization at the time. It represented all First Nation communities in Ontario. And so it negotiated a lot of those things, the ability to administer some of our affairs within our communities. And I recall at the time, the whole notion of treaty sort of went quiet. And so there's those treaty, people that kept reminding us. Don't let these things go. Don't let them lie. That's where our strength is. It talks about our nation-to-nation relationship. So this decision that happened in December, we won that case because we put forward our history, our interpretation of that history. But not only that, it's the first time, I think, in the legal system, in history, that actually used our ceremonies to guide that process. And those are the processes that were exercised during the treaty negotiations. So I mean, and I really, really take heart to that, and I believe it, and I really pay homage to those leadership of that particular era that negotiated those things, because they said, this agreement is going to last forever, for as long as the sun shines, the waters flow, and the grass grows. And that's pretty long-term stuff. And so they were basically thinking about their future, and that everything was supposed to remain as it had before that. We could exercise our culture and continue to live as we had lived. And of course, we all know the history of how that relationship got dishonored by way of federal government creating legislations to undo those promises that they made. But nonetheless, after all this time, we challenged it and we won. And it recognized that historical jurisdictions, our belief systems, our ceremonies, that's what carried the day. So the whole governance legislation or agreement for me, the part I've had difficulty with is with the principle of going forward under federal policy. I mean, that's, for me personally, probably other people, that's been a difficult thing for me. But like I say, I mean, if it's good for communities, that's great. And I think, I commend you for the work, but in my particular instance, no, I can't support it. I haven't opened the envelope. I reserve judgment on it, but I will take it back and have full discussion on it. So, miigwech.
Miigwech, that's those are very good words. Ultimately, progress is going to come for the Anishinaabe Nation, for any nation, in all kinds of forms. So, in this case, within the nation, there has been the use of the Dagenham court system, the use of the Dagenham government in terms of negotiations. Both have borne some fruit. But none of that fruit makes the nation. So just like the treaties that were signed, they just confirm the fact that a nation existed. They didn't make the nation. So it is that this agreement is not going to make the nation a big. That's not the point. It doesn't make the nation a big nation. What it does is it ensures that once those laws are being passed, that the government is not going to any longer try to interfere with the process. Right now, there's a lot of interference. That's the whole point of the Indian Act. But with an agreement in place, whether you do it by agreement or you do it by a court system, the point is getting there. In this case, the agreement is in place that will ensure that if those laws are passed, there isn't going to be interference. So That has been cleared out. Now, what is left is for Grand Council to then design that government, and for individual communities and individual chiefs and councils to design the government you want to see on the ground, because you know now that has been cleared out of the way. So that's the point of the agreement. Does it speak to a perfect process? No. It speaks to the possible, and it speaks to the hope for a future with even more possibility in it. That's the whole point of it. So it's in that spirit that it was negotiated, and that's when the going got tough and the bad was put before us. We said no to it, and it's also in that spirit I think it has to be carried into the future. Taking the gains from and looking through the lens of the treaty process, and looking through the lens of what governance can mean if restoration of community and of culture can be part of it. You know, taking all of it together, not separating out one as the bad and one as the good, but seeing the good in it all and moving forward with it. That's what we're trying to achieve with it.
Which, Chief McLeod, Nipissing. I guess I get what Nelson's talking about, and has really been a lot of, the source of the trouble that I feel too with this whole agreement. However, not going forward with this agreement doesn't get you any further out of federal policy. In fact, it keeps you in the dark ages of it. And that's what I'm looking at. I think if we sit around and wait for a magic answer, we may be sitting for a long time. So I think we need to look at this framework and any other ideas that we may come up with as tools of how to get out of those policies that have kept us handcuffed for 140 years, 150 years. It's not a magic answer. It never was. I don't think it was intended to be, but I think we have to look at it as one small step of moving forward out of it. And no, we're not going to be out of it. We're still going to be under some type of federal policy. But we will as well if we don't go anywhere, if we just sit status quo. So to me, I really have to struggle with, do we accept this carrot, if you want to call it that, to move ahead, as little as that movement may be, and we may not be happy with it, but it is still movement. And it gives us resources to possibly look at other ways of moving our nations even further. I don't believe it's a magic answer, but I don't believe staying at status quo is any more a magic answer. It's less of a. So I don't know. But these are the questions that you all have to ask, and we all have to consider, and we all have to talk about, right? It's there is no perfect solution to the mess that we've been put in, and I agree with Nelson, but I also struggle with where do we go, if not this, where, right? So, miigwech.
Which
Bonjour, José.
Bonjour.
Sí, Kenders in the class. Mijn gonna geven aan wie je wat Toma. get the game in on the margin there. Bezin de man. Get the game in on baby na large more to game in on do go mama na ki do ne no ki do ne ni quick. Get the game in on baby sit do end dan. Gajik chinukki. Get ik chinukki. Give me the big egg. Get the game in now. Give me quick got the game in now. Ogaman kan. Wat de barge mooi geven na schone gunning. Get the game in now. Gikken dan met het geek. Ieders wie ook game in now. Baby sit down dan. Get the game in now in Japan. Dus kijk even dan nog eens in de ei. Ik weet het dan. Geef het ook snel in is in de. Geef het bij square dan geen in de pogen in de. Geen ondon geef maar. Niet kan. Gauw in maar daar geef me na we wonen in de man. Kom eens soms aan ik geef me na gazen. Ga je naar kunnen gaan. Ga in mam daar we wonen in de mangwe. Ik dan zie je nee daar na nou geef me na is je weer daar komt ze neer. Meer zo ga je te gaan dik. Kun je maar gaan watchen bij zo'n geef me na we bij mooi doen. Ga je om de zeven op je chippen. De mag eens gewoon op Piet Teddik. Kino, geef me daar. Quis kon, maar. Amai, gewoon gaat het ook snortsen daar. Je gaat de geef me daar ook, maar geef me daar bedekken, geef me daar wie maar je doen we. Chipsen. Wie je nou maar gaat we. Mi man daar, we geef me daar. Kan ik dat maar gewoon we. Aber dat is wie ze bij in de mango. Aber dat we kennen daar nou. Dat kennen daar nou. En ze bij bezig going zijn daar. Gauw in kunnen wat. Middels gewoon geen niet weten zijn dan je kort dagen zijn houden. Kijk het de game dan nog eens in de is een mild afzien. Kijk het we game dan nog misgassing. Mi wando geef nou me goe geef nou gawin kasto zien we. Winterstang gegen we bij man zo in de king als maar min goe zien we. Kan ik geen woge is een min gas ook. Mi dus gegen we non goe. Ik weet je dan ook op doen we. Kijk het geef nou niet ben om pe geef nou zo niet ja geef nou gaat wat je gaat. Ga ik ook niet gask zien, ben ik wie zich in dat jaar. Put my translator button on. I don't see anybody having. Oh yeah, he's got one on. I'll try to use this language. Correct me, please. That I don't use if, and, or buts because they don't mean anything. We're trying to adapt to a system. Trying to adapt to a system again. You can beat me once, twice, but not 3 times. Maybe we should be negotiating differently. I've been trying to say this over the years. Look at the place we're in. Is it ever nice? Beautiful, beautiful little island. Well, I am from a little island too. And it was very beautiful at one time too, till settlers came in. And that just happened recently, just a little while ago. 1862 happened. The Treaty of Manitoulin Island, when they divided that like a pie. And when they seen my community, they said, you have to move, because it's a potential mill site. So Gima and me over here, we know the history, like your history here on this island and every community where you guys come from. We were moved in a swamp. Now they want that swamp now too. I see different signs here too. Let me point some signs out here. Bitagong Nishnawbek, Nishnawbek Nation. Pace Plat, First Nation, Nishnawbek Nation. We're not identifying ourselves truly. We say that we're a Nishnawbek. We say we're a Nishnawbek Nation. Every place I go, when I introduce myself, I say I'm from the Nishnawbek Nation. Not Shaga and Dot. There are many places like that. But when we talk to government, we should say we're from the Nishnawbek Nation, a nation of people. We're not doing that. Although we say that we are from the Three Fires Confederacy, I hardly see anybody at the Three Fires Confederacy gatherings either. We have ceremonies there. We have to self-identify in order to move ahead. There's one line in the preamble of the Nishnawbek Nation. That one line is very, very important. This line says, "They bench get the end of the way, we knock at the end doing. They bench get kimino na, we knock at the end doing." The Creator gave us sovereignty to look after ourselves. The Creator gave us sovereignty to look after ourselves. Mzenegan ngke tangedish. I have an agreement here. That was given to us in 1763. Before this agreement was made, there was agreements, 500 agreements like this, before 1763, and 500 after. How many of these agreements are kept? How many? I came through a modern day agreement, modern day treaty, called the Land Claims Agreement on Manitoulin Island. That's why I said, you can beat me once, twice, but you cannot beat me 3 times. Once that agreement was on the table, it was being changed as we speak by Ontario. And I said to the lawyer at that time. I'm going to take him to court, by the way, UCCM, and charge him for misrepresentation. I went to his office in Sudbury, and he had a bunch of pile of books on his desk. So I went to his desk. Here's what I did. I put that in my pocket, in my coat. He said, that'll be $62.95, please. I said to him, where did you learn that? You learned that from the elders of Manitoulin Island. You learned that from the researchers. And here we are paying for that again. I kind of think whoever represents us, no matter what capacity they are, those documents belong to us. That's what I think. We had to buy those documents back again. That's not right. I'll go a little faster now. The point that I want to make here, I just wanted to get you thinking about the backgrounders of the things that happen to us. This piece of paper that I hold in my hand, I said at one time, you guys probably heard me say this, show me the bill of sale of Canada. Show me the bill of sale of Canada. They never showed me that yet. Which says to me that there is no crown land. It's treaty land. It's all treaty land. That's our future right there. Treaty land. I was just visiting with my friend outside there. There was a circle on the ground. I said, look at all the houses in that circle, I said. They're on treaty land. I talked about Crown land disposition many, many times, and it's still going on. Even I said that to the national chief just a couple of months ago. You have to do something about that. Even our specific claims, we should drop those. Because that's our future. Maybe we'll go a little bit more. Me and Joe talked about this, about the tax collectors here in our land, in our own communities. When they tax us, when we go and gas up our pony, our horse, we pay tax. There's 5 different taxes there. They only take one away. They tax all the survival food that we get over there, which is pop and chips. Survival food for Nishnawbek. Take a look at all the places where we're staying right now. There's something called a destination tax, a new tax that's being brought out. Look at all the tax when we go and eat. I didn't eat at lunchtime here. Yeah. Lots left over, boys. But we should start taxing. That circle that's outside with a bunch of houses. I know that we can't do anything right now with Sutton over here. How come we don't do anything about Lake Simcoe? How come we don't have fishing licenses? How come we don't issue water permits? How come we don't have hunting licenses? You know, at one time, speaking about hunting licenses, I'm still mad at AFN when they didn't do anything in 1993 about registration of our guns. They never did nothing. They tabled it. I'm going off track here because I'm trying to make a point. They made rules for us. Without a little piece of paper, we cannot even buy guns or bullets. Now, that's a treaty right. Guns and bullets are treaty rights. We never said nothing. Chiefs of Ontario, AFN never said nothing. Now we're paying for it. This little piece of paper here was given to us at one time, a blank sheet. Pete, would you sign that for me? With your DODEM. Pete's not going to sign that. Okay, Pete? I'm going to give you a drink. That's what happened to us. You know that? That's reality. I hope the kids over there, the new ones that are here and back here, learn things like that, the true history. We have to learn the Canadian history. At least I did anyway. I don't know what's happening in school now. But you know, the more times that I visit with Quinn, our youth rep over here, he's a leader. And I said, Quinn, you're a leader. You're not a chief, you're a leader. There are two different kinds of leaders. Leaders and chiefs are two different people. But we won't get into that. I want to get back to this point in this paper here. When they subdivided Manitoulin Island, here's what happened. And they didn't even pay for this land. Maybe 2 cents an acre. And maybe on this side they made a 100-year lease. Those 100-year leases are maturing right now. And nobody's doing research on that. So most of Manitoulin Island, there's land over there that belongs to us. They stole our land because one of the Indian agents says, I'm going to take 100 acres from your land and I'm going to show you how to plant. And that went on from generation to generation to generation to generation. 4 generations went by. So what did we do? We bought the land back. Doesn't that sound crazy? We bought our own land back. That's what's happening to us. Now, solution. When I say that there's no crown land, it's only treaty land. Let's start talking about the Ring of Fire. We have a Ring of Fire too, not only the North Country. Take a look at all the resources that we have. on the lake bottom, up in the sky. There are 5,000 planes every hour that is flying in our airspace. 5,000. How come we don't tax them? There are people in our traditional land that are squatters. So they believe when they stay there for 3, 4, 5 years that they have squatters' rights, taking our land away again. How come we don't tax those guys? I went for a ride in the back road over here on the east end here. See lots of nice little cottages over there. I asked my friends, are those Anishinaabe homes? They said no. Hey, we should tax those guys. Not only those guys, but all the boaters here. We gotta change our way, our tactics. Industry proponents. Take a look at all the minerals that are being taken from our territory. If anybody's here from Whitefish Lake, I don't see anybody, but maybe there is. In Whitefish Lake here, a nickel capital of the world, how much money did we get? How much money did we get? That much. From a company that is from South America. Not even from this country at all. Zero. And that's a commodity that you cannot renew. That's a different type of negotiations. If we don't change our ways of doing business, I know that there was billions of dollars being mentioned here. We have to be accountable to somebody for those billions. And actually, they extract $1 billion a day. A day. In our territory. Our territory is big. I'm not saying that we shouldn't agree to the agreement or disagree to the agreement. I'm just looking at the future. I have grandkids. Yous have grandkids. And every time we start negotiating and making a settlement is like a treaty. It's like what my friend says. As long as the grass grows, the wind blows. Do not make a settlement. But we should take a percentage, like what the government does. 52% of all resources goes to the government, for their government. 52%. 34% goes to the province. 22% to the municipality. What we are collecting for them in our territory. We don't see that. What's left? Zero for us. So we have to go and beg again for our money. I don't want to do that anymore. We are smart enough here. We could even put Canada, my friend, is going to be famous, a prime minister, not a mayor, a prime minister of the Anishinaabe people. That's the goal that we have to maybe envision. Maybe not my friend Lewis, but maybe the youth that are here. Because all of us around this table, we are going to be replaced very soon because of the laws that the foreigners gave us. I know that we're trying to get away from that, but I kind of think there's a better way. I kind of think that maybe we should look at Anishinaabe governance, or clan governance that sustained us for 100,000 years, and trying to educate people on that quickly. I've been doing this since 1997. Most of yous were not here. It's hard. It's tiring. I think of yous all the time. Not only yous, but our kids, our grandkids. We have to teach them. That we have to teach them these gifts that we have and the laws that we have. There's laws on that eagle staff. I was going to talk on that eagle staff later on today, but I don't think we'll have time because I messed up the agenda already again. Miigwech.
Chimingwich.
Miigwech to the Gima Kwe that are here today and asking those questions. We wanted to make sure that obviously the statements as well. We wanted to make sure this is the circle that give that due respect. Those communities that are interested, I know the Jonia is available to your community. I know it's a lot of work for communications. The ROJ department has that Jonia. If you're interested this week, we can make sure you sign off on a form that helps to get the money to your communities. The other thing that we've been able to successfully do in this process is get Canada to pay for the vote. So there is Jonia available to your community to run the vote, so let me know if you need that. There was a letter that was sent out, so I'm around over the next couple of days, so certainly find me and we'll make sure we'll get that money moving. Miigwech.
Bonjour.
Chief Hardy.
Bonjour, Zungizi de Go Makok to them, Bonjour, Bigzagi Nishnabik. You know, I just want to acknowledge my co-chair because I was in the E-Batch repair 2 RCHA, airborne gunners, we're airborne gunners. We jumped with the guns. I say that because of a lot of pride, because in all the years since I left the airborne and gunners, the camaraderie that we had with the people that we learned, we slept, we drank, we partied, we fought, did all the stuff together, but we still got the job done. And that's the discipline as a chief that I've pretty well have acquired, and I use that to my strengths and my benefits. I say that because you talk about that framework that Trudeau is trying to push, and then there's a talk about a 4th level of government that they're trying to develop. But you know, I see among our Anishinaabe nation ourselves, the levels of Gimoch governments, what people are trying to do to entice other First Nations to fall under the eyes or the laws of provincial or the federal entities, corporations and such. I'm sick and tired of the municipalities moving in, using their authority to try to move in our territories, wasting our land and water and animals. And I see that. 3 years I've been fighting with that. I'm almost a goddamn lawyer, for Christ's sakes, because I had to study goddamn law so much so I can have a good understanding. But I didn't have the tenacity because I was born, because I was raised to work for what I do and work for what I get as a kid. That time I spent with Eba Chupera gave me that tenacity to never give up, and I won't ever give up. And I say that because this agreement, you know what, it's better than kicking the butt with a frozen mukluk, I'll say. Because as I see it, I don't see nothing else coming out. I hear what the chief Sagamuk says. I agree exactly, and there's treaties and everything. But I don't see the federal government honoring our treaties. I don't see the provincial government honoring our treaties. I don't see the municipal government. But I do see some First Nations within this group, the camaraderie that's there to a degree, as long as you agree with everybody else. But what I'm saying is that this government agreement gives me something in my community, something to at least start to gather some kind of honor for my First Nation. So we can start establishing the laws that we need to establish, and everybody else can leave us alone. Get off, you can come onto our territory, you can come and get involved with us. Me and my council work hard. We had to get into the First Nation Election Act just so we can have some structure in our place, because all of our lives, there was never no discipline because the government came in and they were telling us what to do and what not to do. We still need an agreement with the Ontario government with regard to establishing and supporting our laws, especially in the courts. So I want to congratulate these gentlemen up here and the staff for the work they've done on this agreement, because there's been a lot of work done up there. And the effect where I looked at my statement, the cash, hey, that's money I'm getting to help my people. And that's what I want to use to be able to get a schnock again when we talked about, to get the firm stance of what we want to do and move ahead. So I just want to say, miigwech to you guys. You guys did a fantastic job. And that cash, that'll help us for my First Nation to do what we need to do to affirm our government. But not just that, the inherent right of the Lord, Shnaba, right? We talk about the Creator. This is where we get it from, because we know we live off that land. I grew up on that land. I seen the fish. I fished the fish. I hunt a lot, and I did all that on the land. I cannot say that I'm going to be buddies with everybody else, with these certain governments, with these certain First Nations. I need to first focus on my First Nation to make sure that we're okay, we're good and okay. So I just want to say miigwech for you guys and the work you've done, especially on the Chiefs Committee. Chief sitting on there. There's been a lot of work done, and I know this is a long time coming. But again, say miigwech for the efforts that you've done, and we look forward to the vote and moving on. Miigwech.
Thank you, Chief Hardy. Chief Shining Turtle.
Yeah, this is, I want to remind myself that the chiefs are invited to speak to these matters. They're very important and very relevant to us. I wrote some notes, where to begin. I think the first thing is that the settler policies have been, I think we all know that's been very difficult on us for a very long period of time. One of the challenges I've stated this that I have with this is that there is no way of dealing with the legacy issues that we've been saddled with. So we're able to discriminate against ourselves on a very regular basis on existing policies, white policy. You're talking about Indian Act elections and how you use your first name or your last name, whether you can use your indigenous names. We all see that in our communities, and that's not who we are. We certainly, I would say this, have very strong different philosophical views, and there's a different place for philosophy. This is the time to talk politics and about where we want to go with our people. I am not a philosopher. I've never professed to be one. But I am the government, a part of my community, and we have to talk about these things. The socioeconomic challenges, I guess they just faced us a little bit more than they face anybody in this room. And I get very concerned about that, and I can't simply walk away from that. I would if there was a level of health that we could agree upon. And that's a struggle that I see every day. And I choose to live that. I choose to take a look at the real poverty that we see in our communities, the discrimination that we see, the lack of education, the controls that we don't have, a job. I get the chance to sit in different parts of my community and watch people that struggle with the welfare system. These are the socioeconomic things that I look at. And that's just not where we come from. The land, we have a small pocket of land, much like Georgina Island here. These are important things because we can't use the land anymore, or use less of it. If you look at, in our area, the resource development, resource extraction section, there's a map that we get every quarter, and it shows more patented land that's taken up. Well, we sit and debate, you know, philosophy or history or organizational structure. More governments are just moving ahead and they're patenting land. You cannot get land around the Sudbury Basin, it's all gone. It's all patented out. There's a map that lays it all out, it's done. So these socioeconomic challenges just will not go away. So one of the things I would have thought that we would argue in the agreement is a legacy fund. And you really have to come from our perspective when you want to negotiate. We should have built that in. It's not that easy to face when you are the chief of your community and you see these things day in and day out. Or you have to buy a casket for somebody because they just don't have it for a funeral or a wake. There are people in here that know what I'm talking about. That's not even dignity. So I would have had built in a legacy fund to talk about how you unravel those relationships, those socioeconomic challenges that we face. I just heard a leader said that he's going to use those resources to go tackle those problems. Well, those aren't our problems alone. And so we just let the government off the hook. You start today in 2019, you're born in 2019. What happened in 1867, what happened in 1850, what happened in 1862, what happened in 1836 simply don't matter anymore. That's frustrating to hear. That's really frustrating because the damage is real. It may not be real in your circumstance, but it's certainly real from what I see. And I'm not just going to walk away and say, it didn't happen. It's happened. There's been a lot of stuff that's been happened to us. Residential school. That plume hasn't gone away. Or maybe it hasn't gone away in Wait for Shriver. That's fine. But I know it hasn't gone away for us. I simply just can't do that. I can't just step ahead and say, okay, it's done. We can't go back and look at these things. So I'm troubled by that in the agreement. We're part of the First Nations Education Agreement, and we struggle with that now. We go to ask for funding, okay, you guys can get more money. Yeah? When we put our daycare together to put it under one envelope, we went and talked to the federal government. You know what they said? Oh, no, you guys are in Bill C-61. You go talk to the Anishinaabe Nation. You go talk to them, KEB. You weren't serious about that. You damn right we were serious. We're trying to build our people up, not tear them down. We couldn't get a couple $100,000 to help us. The non-construction elements of a project. Can't get that from the KEB. So we're now the landlords, right? And now we're kicking ourselves out of the room. But we have an Anishinaabe education. Thank you very much. You didn't tell us that we would turn on each other. That's not a comfortable feeling, and I'm building that facility right now. We had broad thinking about what we wanted to do. We wanted to change the socioeconomic indices in our communities. Not philosophize about them or not dream about them. We wanted to live them today. So this agreement doesn't do that. And we have to be fair about that. So where do we take that? Like Nelson is saying, Chief Nelson is saying, what table do we put that at? Where does the treaty come into focus? Because I have to face those questions when I go home. I find that the ANGA would also be brought into harmony with Canadian laws. That's true, right? It'll also harmonize with the Anishinaabeg Education Act, Bill C-61. And this one, the First Nations Lands Management Act, is that true? A question. So other pieces get dragged into the equation. Chapter 3, the agreement, provides for existing Aboriginal treaty rights, and the fiduciary relationship between the Crown and First Nations will not be affected. It says that in there, I read that. But it also says this, the Canadian Rights, Charter of Rights and Freedoms will also apply to both the First Nation government and the Anishinaabe Nation government. So both groups are into that. Was that explained carefully? So in this sense, I look at it and I say this is very similar to the existing inherent rights policy. And if we're trying to walk away from that, how come we keep going back to it? So I have a difficulty trying to explain that, or trying to synthesize it in my mind so that I can bring some reasonable answers back to my own community. There's going to be 2 levels of government. We know that, right? Right now we don't have that. We have 1 level of government. Now we have 2. Well, it depends, right? We're in order. So here's what I've read in there. There'll be a Anishinaabe Nation government, and then then its constituents, individual First Nation governments. So by default, there's some sort of hierarchy. And further, that those First Nation governments that belong to the AN government, I have to read this carefully, I'm slow, have written and ratified their own constitutions. In my community, we don't do it that way. We've made laws where they're warranted. We're very careful on that. We don't necessarily need a constitution to do that, nor have we been challenged on it because the community's had those conversations. For now, those are my comments. I'd like to read more about this and reconvene and continue to have this real dialogue. This is an important piece. And it's sobering. But I am really deeply concerned about the socioeconomics. I have young children that their parents are still struggling with alcohol. That legacy continues. I've watched it in my 18th year as chief. I've watched it recycle itself. And I vowed this, that it would never happen again. But under my own watch, it's recycled itself. So I can't simply walk away from the socioeconomic table or not express my concern about it. That doesn't mean I don't, I just think we can do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Shining Turtle. I have one more speaker, and then we're going to move forward on the agenda here, folks.
Mawaskano Kwe Dijnika Shikan Dodem Ganabajing Donjaba. Elaine Johnson, I'm the Chief of Serpent River First Nation, and I've heard some of the speakers. I do have some concerns. Many of you have heard me before. I congratulate the negotiating team. You've managed to get quite a bit of money. Unfortunately, the way I see it is government is dangling this money in front of us and saying, take this, it's good for you. You'll get more money. It still doesn't resolve my concerns. Yeah, I'll get more money, and maybe my community will say, take the money and just never mind the concerns. And I guess the previous speaker talked about the inherent right policy. And I guess that's my concern, is that if we accept this agreement, then we're willing to go along with that. And maybe my community will say, yeah, take it, and I'll have to swallow it with a grain of salt. But it really concerns me in regards to what are we agreeing to for the sake of money. My question for the negotiators is, because you have a vested interest in this, because you've been negotiating it, what analysis have we done that is objective, not subjective, in regards to the pros and cons of this? Because I hear this is great for us, but I can tell you I've seen something just recently that it's not so great. So I would like to see an objective analysis that really looks at the pros and cons of this. And is that something that, you know, when you said we could get some money to do this in our community, that maybe I can use that to get an objective analysis on this, whether it's good or bad for my community? Or do we accept it just because we're going to get more money? I guess that's my question. In regards to that objective analysis to say whether this is good or not. And so, as I say, I'm not, you know, any community that wants to go into this, I'm not saying that, you know, this is bad for you. I do have some concerns, and I have been saying that for some time. But where is that objective analysis? Miigwech.
Thank you, Chief. And thank you, Chiefs. And for those that stood up, and thanks for sharing. Thanks for all the input today, because you've got a big job ahead. I haven't heard about this agreement for quite some time. I've been away from these tables. But you've got a lot of work and a lot of thinking to do. And I see things from the grassroots level. People are speaking out. A lot of stuff on Facebook. On Facebook, there's so much propaganda there. So I think as leaders, we need to get into our communities and talk to our people. Let them guide us moving forward. Okay, moving further with the agenda, we're going to take a break here, probably 10 minutes, and then we're going to get into a sharing circle with the chiefs. Okay, so 10-minute break. Thank you. Okay, very quickly, we got to respond. Going to respond to the question the chief had.
Okay, Miigwech, there was a question on the floor about the ability to do some analysis on the agreement. We'll endeavor to, as a department, to make sure that we do an analysis that it's objective, that to make sure, then we'll share that with the chiefs, and it'll help you with respects to the analysis of the agreement if it is in the best interest of your community and your citizens to move forward. So we'll endeavor to do that. Miigwech.
Okay, thank you. So you heard that. That's the answer. I'll go back to an analysis on behalf of the chiefs. So Miigwech. 10-minute break.